Awesome. So welcome back, AJ. I know you're kind of a group favorite here for some of the chats that we do, but we're trying to do a lot of conversations with marketplace founders, kind of thought leaders, and it's great to have you on or have you back on. And for everyone that doesn't know you, can you share a little bit more about your background?
Sure. Thank you, man. I mean, this is definitely fun to chat about marketplaces and all these things. So AJ, based out of New York, and my background is I grew up in India, moved to States roughly 14 years ago, started two companies before Roomi. Uh, One was a dev shop, second was a marketplace, and Roomi is also a marketplace. What we do is we help people rent rooms and find roommates in a verified community. And we've been at it for now, this is my 8th year. Bootstrapped the company for the first 2 years, just myself as a solo founder, and then hired my first employee after that. We have raised, venture-backed, of course, angel money, all of that kind of stuff. Our journey has been definitely not easy. It's been ups and downs and crazy ups and downs. And we are now close to 3 million registered users. We are really big in, I would say, New York and Mexico City. We are live in, a bunch of countries, close to 200 cities now, all over the world. And that's pretty much it.
Nice. So can you, that's quite the experience. So can you maybe share some, a little bit more about your experience kind of in the early days, just getting started, maybe as like a first time kind of founder for a marketplace?
Yeah. So what we did is, not many people know, but Roomi's sort of background is I started the company just using bare bones, no platform. I mean, now you have ShareTribe and you have, Webflow and all these things. But when I was sort of starting out, I had no idea if they existed. So I built Roomi on a Tumblr blog and a Twitter account and Craigslist and Hootsuite. That was my first initial phase of like the tools that I used. And all I would do is all day sit on my computer and just use Craigslist and reach out to anyone I can. And I would try to find the best listings possible. And I would offer them, hey, would you mind if I can, take a listing and put it on a platform? You might get more customers or more people reaching out to you. So I took the emails from the Airbnb founders, right? I mean, that was a big thing back in the days. So I used a similar format and it kind of worked. And then I would take the listing, organize it in a better way instead of just a whole long text. I would like have rent and deposit and rules and blah, blah, blah. And then I would post that on Tumblr. And then I would go on Hootsuite, to use Twitter, and I don't know, manage around 20 keywords. If people said moving out of New York or moving to New York or graduating or roommate sucks, roommate wanted, anything like that. And then I would share my links. Hey, there's a great apartment, maybe a great roommate. You want to check it out, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I got my first initial 1,000 users before I built anything, any app or something like that.
Nice. And was that was the kind of the manual that obviously doesn't kind of scale in the early days to get to the first 1,000. So was that,
Yeah.
did you constrain the location to New York City?
Yes. That's a great question, Mike, actually. So we have been in New York from day one, and we're mobile first only. So after that whole initial MVP, I would call it the alpha test, we built the iOS app. We were on iOS for a while. I would say roughly 2.5 to 3 years. No website, no Android, and only in New York. We supported only New York, and we did this clever thing where we knew that people were unhappy and angry because they couldn't find certain cities in Roomi. So I built this simple form, request your city. And I said, hey, you can vote your city. And if it gets the highest vote, we can open up blah, blah, blah. So that was a good way to, I was mitigate or maybe slow down the sort of the angry responses, I can say. There were people who were really angry. Oh, it's only New York. And we got to learn a lot about people, and we got to collect emails, and that was a good one. And being in New York, I think why it's an important question, because a lot of marketplaces can go, broad, and you can go to a lot of cities. We wanted to go as deep as possible, so that we thought if the penetration is super high, then at least we can become this company that can be grown via word of mouth or organic channels. So that was the main purpose behind that one market strategy.
Nice. And then that's super insightful. So with that kind of said, when would you say that the kind of the time period to when you got your first kind of like liquidity with enough demand for the listings in New York City?
It took me 2 years of bootstrap, and so I would say roughly 3 years, that we were like, yeah, we had within 3 years we got to. It took me a long time, 100,000 users, and we have a couple thousand listings. Usually, is 80-20%. So 80% are movers, 20% listers. So supply is only 20%. So it took us a while to get there. But what we were doing, I think, initially with New York, as we were collecting the data for cities that people were requesting, we also started launching Facebook groups. That was around after 3.5 years, we launched all these Facebook groups based on these cities. We said, okay, we don't have the resources, so we cannot open up new cities on a platform, but I think we can open up Facebook groups. So we start directing people to our Facebook groups and say, hey, why don't you help yourself? And we'll launch the city and we'll let you know when the city is live.
Nice. So we definitely have to talk about that a little bit more. So can you maybe share about the kind of prioritization of running your marketplace from the actual core marketplace, and then kind of outwardly as far as from like cultivating the Facebook groups, how you kind of balance that, and maybe some of your kind of thoughts around the initial strategy?
Yeah. So I think what we thought about, building Roomi was very difficult, right? Because you have the question I used to get from investors. I remember people laughing at me, like in a big pitch with 20 investors that I'm pitching, and they're laughing at me, and they were used to say, dude, we have Craigslist. Why are you building Roomi? I remember that from one of the investors.
Yeah.
I definitely hated that response. But anyways, I think I also loved it because they were right. Why are you building? But I think there was a clear need because people didn't feel they were spending too much time trying to figure out who these people are on Craigslist. And second, they couldn't trust them, right? That was a big thing. So that was the early stage of Roomi when we realized that. I think maybe after a month or so, I realized, hey, listen, if we can differentiate from Craigslist, I cannot compete with them on supply liquidity. There's no way. I cannot compete with them on demand. There's no way. There were a bunch of like heavy startups, I would say, in classified space. They were like heavily funded. There's no way I can go and compete with them either. But I think what I saw, no one was focusing on that verified aspect of the marketplace. How do you trust people if you haven't done a background check or ID check or LinkedIn verification or Facebook verification, phone verification? I think Airbnb was dabbling into it early on. And I think I was around the same time I was dabbling into it early on as well. We knew that safety is going to be a big thing. So we went 100%, like I think 1,000% in on safety. So that was the purpose of these Facebook groups. I think we were probably one of the few ones out there that managed. Now we have close to, just to give you some scale, I think we have close to 200, 250 groups now managing on Facebook. And we have close to, I think, over 300,000 to close to 400,000 members in these Facebook groups now. And so we said, okay, we're going to moderate Roomi from day one. So as a platform, I think we were the only company at that time in our space that reviewed every single user and every single listing before it went live. Like literally had to be reviewed by a human. So we actually ended up building a team of, I think, close to 30 people. Wow. The first raise, that's what we did, and we thought we were like stupid to do that because we were doing things that are not scaling. And then later on, we end up, using SIFT signs and build our fingerprinting technology inside and all those crazy API stuff that we have now. But I think early on, we had this team to vet and verify each and every one. And then we launched, after maybe 4 years, launched ID checks and background check. But the Facebook groups were similar to Roomi. We use the exact same strategy. All these Facebook groups had these wall where you had to be like verified by a Roomi customer service team. So we built this fraud and safety team inside, and that would be like vetting all the members in all these groups. And if we found anything is spam and complaints, like kick them out. So that's how they grew slowly, but people knew that this group is like legit. If I go to this group, I can actually find a really good match. And that's how they started to grow organically by itself.
Nice. And then did you see that the kind of the Facebook groups kind of added that like social kind of component too, as far as from growth to it to the actual kind of marketplace as far as your app? Or
crazy answer, man. No, actually. We just realized that last month.
Oh wow.
After eight years, yeah. We're just so busy building the marketplace in so many ways. We never realized that we can actually use Facebook now finally to grow Roomi even faster. But what we did know that we were helping people. We knew that we were helping hundreds and thousands of people in Facebook groups. And the brand is going to grow. Eventually it's going to grow, right? Because they were all branded groups. They're still branded groups.
Yeah.
And we still are adding more groups now. So I think now finally we're using the Facebook groups API in testing right now that we can create a loop where anyone posting in the group can go on Roomi, and anyone on Roomi can go to Facebook group. And that's a loop consistently going to grow even faster now for both the marketplaces.
That's awesome. So, so this is kind of like we fast forward a little bit, talking about focusing on New York City and then international markets and kind of at like 3 million users. So, to take that next step as far as launching in other markets, how did you kind of think about that and prioritize the maybe other markets that you wanted to launch into?
So what we did is that, and we expanded very quickly once we realized how to do it. We were like all in, and I think maybe the mistake we made, we could have gone earlier, like we could have expanded earlier. I think I definitely can see that as a mistake. But at the same time, we wanted to really focus on one city and getting it right. So what we do now, we sort of like look at a couple of data points. And number one, I think, is that we measure we would look at other marketplaces like Craigslist or Facebook groups or other marketplaces in our space and see how many listings they have. We really go for supply first, not demand. So if the listings is like kind of like really good amount of listings in those cities, then I think we pick those cities. But we also combine that with our own requesting system that we have built now, and we have probably close to 100,000 people who have been requested cities so far. So that's one. And then our key goal in these markets, I think we look at now, since we make revenue, I think we can see what converts people, and usually what does is listings. We know the supply is extremely important for us. So we try to get to 50 rooms in each market before we can really open up to the public. So we try to find ways through Facebook, through growth hacking, and we don't do paid right away. So we try to avoid paid marketing in any new market for at least 3 months to 6 months. So we don't spend money. We try to really growth hack it. And if that can happen organically and using Google, of course, app stores and blah, 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 then we start to spend some money after that. But that's the way we do it right now, a simple playbook.
Nice. And so how many markets are you present in right now, would you say?
Close to 200.
Close to 200. And then do you know about like how many you're kind of cultivating and waiting to launch in, or?
So we're at a stage now where I think that we are really good with launching markets and expanding and growing them. And the network effects are kicking in now, I think so. We're going to go no market strategy now. So we're actually working on changing our APIs that we can launch a market on the fly. So if the city doesn't exist by the time you finish onboarding your username and username password, we will have the city ready for you instantly.
Nice.
And the goal would be, we developed a system that I think I can talk a little bit about, but not too much right now. But it's called a global module that we have in Roomi. So we broke down the entire platform into, so we can call it global pricing, global revenue, global onboarding, global supply, global listings. Each part of the product is a small module of this global strategy. And what this global does for us, it can actually tweak the product. So we have been working on it for months and months now, and it's almost ready. We launched the pricing last year, and we're now launching onboarding. So what I mean by that, given when you look at a new market, so let's say a smaller market compared to a bigger market, right? You want to treat it completely differently. And as an example, if I ask you 10 questions in New York, I only want to ask you one question in that market because the friction should be as low as possible. So we get as many people as we can first in, and then we start to add these barriers slowly as we build the liquidity in that marketplace. And that applies to onboarding, how many questions we're asking, applies to the language, it applies to the pricing. So we try to keep the price the cheapest you can imagine. Like the same product can be available, I'd say for, let's say $30 in a market, a big market. The same product I can offer for $2 because we want more customers. We realize that one of the key factors in a marketplace you have to look at is how active is your liquidity of demand and supply.
Mhm.
And I think one of the ways to make it active is to make people pay for it. It's kind of a crazy concept, actually. I think the concept is because scary. You don't ask for money because you're scared that people are not going to pay for your product. But if you ask for money and some of them are going to pay, those are the most active content creators on your platform because they paid. So their profile and their content is 10,000 times better than the free one. They're more active, they're more responsive, they come back more often, they engage with the marketplace, with the consumer on both the ends, and the successes are higher. So eventually you want to aim for that, but it's really hard to aim for that because people don't build these systems, I guess, early on.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So when did you, with that kind of said, as far as basically charging, when did you start to introduce that as far as monetization on your marketplace?
I would start by saying that was the biggest mistake I've made in my company. I wish I did it earlier. I really wish. I can't take it back, anyways. But I think after 4.5 years,
Okay.
it was too long, too long. I think I was so scared. I can tell you the fear I had. I thought if I ask for money, everybody's gonna run away. I kept thinking that, like, dude, you can't have. If you ask
Yeah.
for money, let's just grow the marketplace first, right? Because let's just grow it, and we grew really, really fast. And we were just so scared. If you ask for like even $1, people are gonna say, "Oh my God, this is a stupid marketplace. I'm not gonna use you." We forgot that, dude, we're adding value. We're adding real value. It's a legit product. And if we are not adding value, then something is wrong, right? Because you're not willing to pay for the product.
Yeah. So you saw I'm sure as far as a different kind of maybe relationship with your users at that point when you started to charge?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I think because we're not a marketplace that is built on retention.
Uh-huh.
So it's hard to build a relationship. It's like a very one-off or maybe two-off transactions. So you don't get a lot of chances to build a relationship because repetition is not happening. That's good and bad. Good is tomorrow morning I can change the whole platform and you wouldn't notice it. You wouldn't really care. You're the first user to see it this morning, actually.
Yeah.
You can change the pricing and you're the first guy to see it or whatever, right? So the bad thing also is you're not coming back, so we cannot build a relationship with you. I don't think that was the reason why we didn't charge. We ended up charging people. I think we ended up charging because we believe that we have enough liquidity on the marketplace. We actually have, we don't talk a lot about it, but we've actually had 2 times more supply than Craigslist in New York. We were like one of the few companies that cracked it, and even today now, we can go anywhere from 12,000 to 15,000 active listings a day.
Yeah.
And this is a really huge number. If you compare to Airbnb, we're actually crushing it in terms of in New York from Airbnb and Craigslist.
Yeah.
Same happening in Mexico City, same happening, and now we're seeing in Atlanta, LA, Austin, some of the fast growing cities we have now, in Toronto, other cities as well. Yeah.
Nice. And then, so that's pretty interesting. So how do you kind of value your supply? Because I'm assuming that, once it's kind of on the platform and then someone finds a roommate, then it's inactive as far as supply, maybe?
Yes. I think how we really count it is the best supply you can ever find in anywhere in the world. That's really our big USP. Like, we definitely pride ourselves that we have the best supply.
Yeah.
Our scam rate is barely close, like less than 1%. We don't get people scammed, and we deactivate listings all the time. We kick people out all the time. Like, we're the policing sort of the squad that we have, and making sure that this is the best and the safest marketplace on the planet. That's our only goal we have right now. And that supply, I think, we know that this is only one-time transaction, but surprising fact about Roomi, our average stay on Roomi is around 4.5 months. So people do come back to us 2 to 3 times a year, actually. And we now have been building things more into fintech side of the platform, where we want people to come back every month and hopefully every week. But at least we can definitely guarantee that we can get to a month. And that's going to increase our LTV and, of course, shorter payback period, and of course a lower CAC.
Yeah, nice. And then do you just more information, do you guys charge supply also or have any kind of revenue model with the
We
supply?
charge both sides, supply and demand.
Okay. So how do you kind of balance as far as the revenue on each side?
You know, it's almost like half and half because we have different products for different side. And we early on we didn't know what's going to work, but I think now we see a clear distinction between like what supply needs and what demand needs. So we kind of built now for both sides separately, and they use them almost equally actually.
That's awesome. Nice. So what would you say is just something maybe kind of like right now that you're focusing on, kind of with everything going on?
Some of the things we did with everything going on right now is to add more trust. So I think we are now thinking about if we can add more verifications, like kind of lower the friction. So using more like phone verifications. We're working on a video. Videos have been a big test for us. So we launched video 2 months ago as like this whole COVID situation happened. And that's been helpful. People love videos now. So we're now building live streaming. So instead of texting back and forth, you can just like kind of chat video. And then we're getting into fintech heavily. So we're sort of like transitioning towards a more transaction platform and building wallets. We're building rent payment systems. We're also building bill splitting systems now. And we're going to get into also sort of accepting crypto finally, let our young users accept crypto for all the services that we offer on Roomi. And then hopefully eventually our goal is to, in the next year or so, to be that sort of platform where, both the parties can come together to kind of manage their day-to-day things happening in the house.
Yeah. So did out of curiosity, did you, when did you think that you wanted to start to own the transaction layer?
So we have been actually trying to do that for, I would say, close to a year and a half, and we haven't been successful so far. But I think slowly it's picking up. We do decent volume actually, but I think it's not enough to say that it's successful so far. I think something is missing. So we're working on improving that, and hopefully I think that doing something more recurring is going to help us increase the transaction volume on Roomi.
Nice. And then let's kind of jump over to talking about maybe the early stages of kind of Roomi and, as a company, how you approach kind of fundraising and then kind of like where you're at now. Can you maybe share a little bit more about kind of, the early days and, how that might have been early with funding and then kind of switching over as far as to, revenue based?
So early stage, kind of going back to bootstrap for roughly 2.5 years, and then raising, I think we started raising around, I actually don't remember anymore, I think 2015. Yeah, 2015. And then we wanted to grow really fast, so I think we went on raising money all the time, I think from 2015 to 2018. And we raised over $20 million in capital. And also sort of like that also hurt the company because we always just grow and never realized that, we should be focusing on revenue early on. And we just scared. We didn't know what the right revenue model was. We were testing it out. We just weren't fast enough to do it. And then in 2018, actually, sadly, we had to go through a recap, a really, really difficult time that personally me and my team, and we had to just restart the company from scratch. We kind of went from 70 people to me and 2 other randos, literally and one of my first 2 employees stuck around. I'm so grateful for them. And then with the help of some other colleagues, we ended up building the company again, ground up, restart the whole thing again, 2.0. And now we again raised capital in 2019. We just did a small round again in 2020. But our goal now is to be profitable. And the goal is to be kind of on our own and keep growing, but grow in terms of revenue margins, kind of own our own destiny and control what we can. So we're in a really good path right now. We're very close to breaking even. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this year we should be all in our own hands.
Yeah, we're all pulling for you, that's for sure. So
yeah, it's been quite a journey. And but I think just to say, we're not ruling out fundraising. I think we even after all of that, we raised 2 rounds now. And I think our thing is that raising money doesn't make sense for us because our priorities have changed completely. So we are more of a margin-based company, revenue-based company than I think we were like fundraising-based company. So we want to raise, of course, round again, but when we are sure that, hey, this is the model and this is clear model that we have now, and we can throw millions and this is just going to blow up, right? Instead of just like raising money and don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Yeah. So just curious about that. So what is that kind of for you? What does that look like as far as kind of like those KPIs that you feel like you need to hit in order to do that?
So we're almost there now. We definitely enjoy, I can say, staying private. So just to kind of give you some idea, we convert around 30% of our users into customers on a daily basis. And to give you some metrics, we used to convert around 0.9% in 2018. 2017, and then 6% in 2018, 22% in 2019, and we're now 30% in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a daily number. It's not a yearly number anymore.
Yeah.
And so in New York, we convert close to 50%. Anyone who signs up, like out of two, one is going to be a customer. It's kind of crazy to us. It's crazy to us. And our margins are super high. I think we're looking at 67%, 70%, sometimes 75% margin. So those are really, really good. We're also looking at some of the things in terms of like, our CAC has gone down to below $1. It has not gone up more than $2 to $3 in the past, I think 2 years now. And I wouldn't share average revenue per customer, but I think it's in double digit. So it's the margin is super high. I think things are looking really, really good. I think maybe our goal now is to how to scale that. Now we're experimenting that. Now, if we had to spend money again, what would that CAC look like?
Yeah.
So we are at a stage where we're trying to figure that out, right? And as long as it stays below 2-digit numbers, I think we're fine. We can go and raise and we can do what we want to. But we're also looking into trying to find a growth again. So we're all organic. We're like 95, 97% plus organic company. We do not spend money in marketing. And that's a goal. And I think we want to experiment with that. We can set aside a revenue, spend that money, and grow it again using our own revenue instead of raising capital. I think I'm just not big, at least right now, on raising capital today.
Yeah.
There's so much to be done. Yeah.
So what would you say is one of the biggest contributors to a low CAC for you guys?
It's been actually penetrating one market. It's something that personally, like I took really huge criticism and blame as a founder and CEO for that. It was really hard to convince people early days that staying in New York makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like spending resources in New York makes sense. It was so difficult, I remember back in the days, to convince anyone that why would we do that. But I sort of had the strategy was that if we can go deep in New York, and it's so densely populated, right? The penetration is so high, then people are going to talk about it. The success and the failure are going to turn this into this snowball effect, right? The impact's going to be huge. It's going to keep growing, actually. And that's exactly what ended up happening. We reached that point exactly around the same time when we were like almost dying and going, recap or bankruptcy situation. And it was just ironic. I don't know what it is. It's crazy. It's happened, and now that's how we stayed afloat. Yeah. That's how we came back to life. That's how our numbers improved dramatically. And I think that gave us a perspective that once you get things right and you have the right numbers and you know how to grow the marketplace, it's just marketplace. Marketplace are really hard to kill, guys. Once you build the liquidity on both sides, there's no way that they can die easily. So they can keep growing from there.
Yeah. So just out of, I think I remember seeing some, maybe it was like post about it kind of in the past too, but didn't you guys early on do a lot of like offline kind of marketing in New York City as far as activations?
Yeah, so we did try a lot of different channels. And I think if I remember the number correctly, it was close to, I think 50,000 something people for months and months. We did it like a few times, actually, a few years, and on the streets. And we did that, literally just got our first set of downloads from talking to people on the streets, grassroots effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you continue with it? Did you find that any of it was like effective in a way that was measurable that you continued with, or?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of ways to measure it because we had these links and unique links for each ambassador or like a grassroots, team member on the ground. And then we would give them a gift, like a t-shirt or something, and they would do something for us. They'll do it like a water bottle, stuff like that. We had it. It was not scalable. We tried. We had like close to 30, 50 people running it. It was not scalable, but I think this is what we needed at the time to kind of get the feedback and really hear what people had to say and the body language and the response and feedback. And that sort of helped us get the word out there about Roomi.
Got it. Nice. And then are you doing that in any other kind of markets now, or
No.
is that just kind of a one-time thing?
It's like we've tried these different things and, we kind of kept moving on to find the better alternate method, I would say. Yeah.
So what are some kind of channels that you see like maybe emerging or kind of underutilized channels right now for user acquisition for you guys?
I think one of the things you can do, and I think we do this, I think I talked about it last time as well, any sort of like recurring flow. Facebook groups is just like one example. I think Reddit is a good one. I think it grows nicely. And you can also look at some of the discussion. I mean, it's old school, but I think you want to look at like API-based systems where you can connect to the APIs and the content can go from them to you, right? You can do that. I think what we have not utilized yet is a feed system. So basically these bigger aggregators, right, in the world, that's like Trovit to Nestpick to big ones. They have these simple feed APIs that you can use to send your data to a bigger platform. And sometimes you'll find that actually is a cheaper CAC, obviously cheaper cost per click compared to Google and Facebook. And if you want to grow at scale. So those are not bad, actually. I think getting a brand out there on these platforms, and there are like hundreds of them. So that requires a lot of work because you kind of like doing the feed. Feeds are not easy. You might have different requirement for each feed, for each platform. So we're now working on that.
Yeah.
Building a feed system, letting us apply out of the system, let it be on other platforms, and let people come to our platform to referral, actually. That's one you can do. And I still think that SEO is it's like underutilized always, right? And the reason is because, you're optimizing keywords all the time, but what you're not optimizing for is how the bots are reading your data, right? And that's speed, readability of your data on the website when the crawler comes and try to crawl your site. You want to achieve that score as high as possible, even if you look as simple as page speed, right? Most people have in 60s, 40s, 70s. You want to go at like 90 plus for each and every page. We haven't achieved that yet, but we keep working on it to speed up the response as fast as possible because that's going to get you top on Google. Look at App Store. I think ASO is such an underutilized tool as well. No one is using it. Most people don't use it actually. So look at Google. Look at iPhone App Store, maybe Samsung App Store. I think these are really, really good ones actually. Keyword data. If you use all of that stuff, that can also be extremely helpful.
Nice. I can definitely tell you have an engineering background. I love how you think about kind of engineering growth. And I actually did want to ask, as far as kind of on that note, do you at what point did you, maybe not do so much yourself as the founder when it comes to identifying, growth opportunities and kind of, that actually implementing them and kind of building a team around that?
I think after the first, I think a second raise of funding, we did that. So, we ended up hiring our first early on marketing person, and he became the director of growth, and he did a great job with that. And he ended up building, more team members, and I think growth, social, organic, paid, tried different bunch of things. Yeah, I think maybe after 3.5, 4 years, I stopped doing it. I mean, not that involved.
Got it. Cool. And then, so how big is the marketing team now? As far as
we actually have no marketing team at all right now.
No.
Yep, we don't do marketing. We do not spend any money in marketing. It's all, I think we've gone from a marketing growth focused company to a product focused company. So product does all the work. Engineers and me and my team, they're always thinking about all these things in terms of a product issue instead of a marketing issue.
Yeah. Can you maybe expand on that? Because I love that. Maybe for others that aren't kind of like as product kind of growth focused, on just a little bit more about that and how you guys think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at so we have one of the products we have right now in Latin America called dataroom.com. And, you know, it's quite a big brand in Mexico City, actually. And the way they have been able to grow it, the team that we have there, and I think we used to have there, is simple social sharing, actually. So a lot of the so like when you're posting a listing, let's say you're posting a supply, right away asking, reminding at the right places, hey, would you like to share this on your social media? And on an average, even now, we get around anywhere from like 5 up to 30 posts a day. Oh. And this is when we have not even optimized anything. If you look at even like on an average of 10 or 15 posts a day, you're looking at a really good traffic. That's like the brand awareness is happening on a daily basis, right? It's as simple as that. And I think product focus means, I think, mostly SEO focused. So most of the resources are going towards how do we improve the speed? How do we increase that readability for Google bots and all of that stuff? You know, 404 links and 500 errors. Like, how do you decrease all the errors and timeouts and blah, blah, blah on the platform so that, you know, Google loves it? And same thing goes for app stores. You know, how do you make app lighter? You know, how it's heavy. So it's like, you know, you have to reduce the size all the time, optimize the code all the time. So I think that all that kind of stuff. And then product focus also means the Facebook groups that we have now, how can we use those APIs to automate as much as we can? How do we bring the Facebook, like almost a content management system, and build this into our own management system so we don't have to go to Facebook anymore at all, and we can just manage it through APIs, all of that. And that way our teams and customer service departments and fraud teams and other teams can manage it instead of relying on just marketing teams.
Yeah, I love that. Well, cool. So I think we've kind of had a good little discussion. I'm definitely wanting to save a little bit of time to open it up to any questions that people might have. Let's see. Did anyone have any kind of immediate questions you want to chime in on?
Yes.
Hey.
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Oh, right. God, this was gold. Thank you so much. Amazing. So I run a flat sharing platform. We've been in touch. Room sharing platform that's aimed at over 50s. So there's a lot of correlation. I'm very early stage, and I totally respect how you're going about this, because we built ours for $150 and scaling it up. So I'm just like,
thank you.
Anyway, yeah, what I'm really interested in is looking at your site. There doesn't seem to be a lot of transparency about the pricing between, maybe I didn't see it, but I couldn't see any clear indication of the cost to, for the home, you know, on the room side and for the renter. Am I right, or am I just missing something?
So everyone actually, when they post a room, they do mention the rent. It's all there.
No, in terms of the charges that you charge.
Oh, so we don't charge for people listing on the site. The first 2 listings are free, and then right. We charge you. So you're right. What we do, we don't show prices to anyone. We don't show that how much Roomi charges. Like, that's a secret sauce we have, right? Like, no one, I think if you had to like copy Roomi, I'm sure you're gonna get it wrong, because you would never see the pricing of Roomi. So like, and we did this on purpose. It's all driven by our APIs. And it just changes prices all the time based on what's best for the platform and the people. Yeah.
Okay, but for me, it's like the whole idea of trust, which you go on about, and we are totally, that's the main thing for our users, is all around verification, trust. For us, the cost of listing and all the charges that we build in are part of that trust. So yes. For me, there's a conflict in what you're saying. What's your
So we
response to that?
so we don't charge for, so that's the reason is we don't charge for those services, right? So you can list for free, you can apply for free, you can rent for free. We don't charge you for any of these things. That's why there's no cost to be declared, right, for the end user, because we're not stopping you from using the platform at all. And that's where the trust is. But I think our trust is that, plus the trust that the person you're talking to or applying to have gone through a good verification, right? So ID checks and background checks and LinkedIn and phone numbers and emails. I think that's the trust that we're building on the platform.
Right.
And
okay.
the pricing, I think if you look at, right, I think the pricing that goes into it is as simple as that. If you come from a different city, let's say a smaller city, right, where the average rent is close to $500 per month, then compared to New York, where there's like 1,100 to 1,500 per month, right? I shouldn't be charging you the same prices. You have a different need than other person, so what we charge you is a lesser price. So it's actually good for you that you pay less for sort of some services, right, in that city, given that that's a new market for us. That's a lower market for us, because if I charge you a lot more and you don't see enough supply or enough liquidity, it's kind of bad, right? Because you're going to say, hey, you charge so much, but you're not really helping me. That's why I'm charging you less, because I know I'm not there yet to charge you a lot more money.
Fair enough.
But if you in a healthy marketplace, right, high competition, then you charge a lot more.
Fair enough.
Now, that was a great question. I know that AJ, last time on our last chat, we discussed that and kind of market conditions and whatnot, reflecting on prices.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important to do that, I guess. You can't charge the same.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'd love
lots
to.
of questions.
Hey, man.
Some.
So go ahead, Chris.
Chris. Oh, sorry. Thanks. Hi, AJ. Chris from Clocker here. Good to see you. I had a couple of questions for you. Quite broad. I'm interested to understand a little bit more about your thinking around shifting from marketplace focus, moving more into fintech as a service. Is that more strategic in terms of long-term company valuation? And then also curious to understand more about the value-added services that you're looking to add to your platform, such as crypto, and how you kind of expand on that opportunity.
Well, good to see you face to face, Chris. I think good question, man. I think the fintech focus is a part we realize that we do want to help more people, right? But I think building all these things, the marketplace, and it costs a lot of money. I'm sure you all know it, right? Marketplaces are not easy and not cheap. And so we want to be in your life for a longer time. And one of the ways we can do it, right, is to be in your life after we help you find a great place, right? Or a great roommate. And that's why some of the services we think about, I think issues like billing, issues like splitting bills can be a big one. Issues like paying your rent can be a big one, right? And given that we're all moving to sort of digital economy more and more, so I think it makes sense for us. And then more fintechy, I think, would be, I know that right now the barrier has been you to split the bills, but you go offline, you do Venmo, you do PayPal, easy to keep a track of these things. People are building apps, right? Like to track your bills and everything else. But imagine if I'm going to give a hypothetical example, not what Roomi's building at all, but you don't hold me to that. But if you had a debit card, shared debit card for both of you guys, right? Or both the people in the apartment. And imagine that debit card was the same account, and you can clearly see, you can load it, you can clearly see who's spending what. I'm just making a hypothetical pitch here, right? So that can be a great tool for people to use that. Same way, when you're paying rent to people, yes, there are instant transfers available, but I think the issue even today is that people want to use that. People don't want to take that extra step to sort of access that money, right? So if you paid the main tenant or you're trying to pay a landlord, that's not online, that's not trying to give the bank information, that's not trying to change the old ways, maybe we send them a debit card as well. And they do that, right? And what if you were moving from India or maybe China, maybe Europe, maybe some other place where you use a different currency, right? All that becomes a problematic issue, right? How do you get that money to here and all that kind of stuff? And that also, that's a part of building a credit system, basically, eventually. It's like these small things add up to a bigger system. Like I think our big goal for Roomi is to be the safest marketplace on the planet. Like that's how we think about all the time, everything we do. And if that is the case, then I think, wouldn't it be cool if you can see that who's a more reliable roommate based on your payment history? And payment history shouldn't be just making sure that you can pay rent on time, but smaller things on time. So we want to build something that can be carried forward as you spend a decade or plus in living in different apartments with different amazing people. So that's the idea into like fintechy world.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Have you looked into sort of like systems where, for example, millennials tend to be the generation rent in most cities, where you can start building up some sort of deposit banking system so they can move from renting into home ownership?
Yep, we have. And I think we're going to collaborate a lot more. We don't really believe in building these things by ourselves. I think just to be very clear. I don't believe in like spending a lot of time to just build these things by ourselves. We have great partners. So our last fund who backed us is actually a fintech fund. So, you know, we can see we're getting a lot of help, a lot of value from these investors and of course our partners, so we can build these things easily and deploy them and launch them faster.
Cool, thanks.
Nice. That was a great question, Chris.
Cheers.
Cool. I think, Sharik, I think you had a question too.
Yeah. Hi, Ajay.
Hey, man.
So we've got a B2B marketplace. I wouldn't go too much into it because I wanted to understand what's your philosophy around testing pricing, right? So we've got a similar model where we take some money from the supply side from a percentage point of view and some from demand side. How do you test to what degree you can go in terms of the pricing from both sides of the marketplace? What's your thought process on that?
I mean, my personal view, it's a good question, man. You know, how do you go about testing pricing and to what extent, I guess? My personal view is that you can do anything. It's your marketplace. And I think at the end of the day, you have to realize if you are not making money, you would be out of business. That's the bottom line. And I think to be out there, to help as many people as you can, you have to stay alive. And that means making money. Making money means building things that people think you're adding value, right, for or to. But as an example, I think I'll give you is that in the pricing model, right? I don't know what you're trying to optimize for, but I think what I can tell you, what I believe, what we try to optimize for at Roomi is number of customers, even an unhappy customer. Actually, I think I'll rather get a unhappy, angry customer than getting a free user. I really would want an angry customer, actually, not a free user. But I think, of course, happy customers first choice. Yeah. The reason is that, so if you can get the pricing to a point where they find value in a certain product and they're willing to pay for it, it's actually going to help you grow the marketplace faster. As I said before, you want them to moderate the content for you. You want them to be incentivized for that. You want them to be incentivized to be active on the platform. You want them to be incentivized to talk about your marketplace with other folks, like friends and family or whatever, right? And share the message. They would not do it unless there's skin in the game, good or bad. If they're angry, they're gonna shout and yell at you everywhere in the world you can imagine. If they're happy, yes, they're not gonna do the same thing, not gonna talk to everyone, but at least they'll tell the closest allies, friends, partners, colleagues to use your marketplace. So I would definitely advocate for get them to convert to a customer, man. We try our best to convert as many people as we can on a daily basis to convert to a customer.
Makes sense. Yeah, so I mean, we started off from revenues, right? So we did not start from free users at all. We started from day one, right? You know, but I've been like testing different percentages. The funny thing is, the more percentage we are increasing, the value of the supply increases as the perception of the customer.
Yeah, that might be working then. Yeah.
So I've tested it out to even 100% just to see to what degree we can go. And I'm scared to, you know, really, because I really don't know now. Should I drop it down to 40%, keep it to 20%? There's no real answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's more ethical question. I would not want to record this online, but I think maybe you can look at it this way, right? I think pricing, maybe as an overall question, guys, like for price testing, I think maybe we can talk about certain things. Number one, when you're testing a price, I think what we look for is a market, a type of user. So you can segment types of users. more active, some are not active, some are supply, some is demand. And then you can also look at the time and days. Like we know that, our nights are not that strong, but days are. Our weekends sometimes are stronger, sometimes they're not. So you can look at that. So seasonality, I think, is a big one. We look at seasonality. So like, we know that some months are not that great for us and some are pretty great for us. So we got to make up for that losses, right? And I think make that money. And in terms of, I think, the pricing, you can also look at the pricing for the supply. So let's say if you're looking at a room that's like $3,000 a month, should we charge that customer more? It's a big ticket transaction, actually. Maybe we can, because they have the money to do it. But then same time, we discount other people who are not willing to pay that 10%, but still need the safety on the platform to be able to feel like safe, right? Because if you're processing $1,000, let's say, and now I'm charging you 10%, you feel like, oh my God, I'm gonna bypass the system. But sometimes what happens when you bypass the system, you might end up getting scammed. See, that's a big issue. It's like, how do you balance that? You wanna charge the right price, yet you wanna be safe because you wanna protect your users, right? You don't want them to bypass and circumvent the marketplace, because eventually people scam you, right? They might not sell you the product, they might never ship the product, they might never rent you the apartment. Apartment is not what they were selling you to, right? So these things happen all the time. So being the middleman is very important, not to only make money, but I think more importantly, to be that platform that can make people feel safe. So I would just define these different testing points, right? And see them. If they keep going up, man, it's your choice. You can keep going up. But I would look at the drop in the customer conversion. If that is dropping significantly, I would stop. But it depends though. Like I would want to stop because I want more people to be my customers. Instead of less people paying me more, I want more people to pay me less.
Yeah.
Because eventually I'm using that cost to sort of grow my marketplace.
Makes sense.
It's a really great question now. Cool. Well, we might have time for, you got a little bit more time, AJ? Maybe like one more question?
I'm around, yeah.
Awesome.
I got 6 minutes, yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Actually, Suzanne had a question that was just about competition. So like massively funded competition. So maybe, can you just maybe share like how you kind of think about competition?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm glad. When
somebody had to.
You did a great one, that one, actually. I think I like to take everyone back to when we started. I started the company when there was Craigslist, OLX, Quicker in India, Kijiji. They were much bigger than Body, much bigger. The OLX group has billions, sitting in the bank. So I think maybe that's the answer. It doesn't matter what the competition is. It really does not matter. You find a niche value proposition or system, whatever the gap is, and you build for that, and you build it so well that people are gonna love what you built, with the product you built, right? And I think that's where the value is. If you can add that value, you're going to grow. And I think Body actually they started after actually us, and yes, they raised more money, but sometimes, and I just read one of the big VCs mentioned that, when someone else is getting bigger funding, you make sure you can live or last longer, I would say. It's like camel strategy, right? Hold the water. Just save what you can. Yep, and just do that.
We call it cockroaches. Do you know about cockroaches?
You're right. Yes, cockroach strategy. Yes. I think we have been called that multiple times now. We just don't die. Trust me. You can take us anywhere. We made big mistakes. And small mistakes. We've been ups, downs. We're still here. We're just not gonna die. We're not gonna give up, right? So that's what it is.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's amazing. I don't know if we could have ended it on a better note than that. So thank you. Thanks once again for taking the time to chat with us. This is incredibly helpful and insightful. So how can we, do you have any kind of links to anywhere you want to share as far as how we can keep up with you?
LinkedIn, man, or Twitter, whatever. I mean, I'll share in the group, actually. I'll just drop in my LinkedIn, actually. Love to connect with everyone. But this is I think if you can send me the recording, I'll actually try to write it down somewhere and share something with you guys.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah. So I'm recording this right now. I'll actually kind of stop it right here.